So now we are going to carry out the final setup on the compression chamber. So you can see that the sample is already in place, being held by the autoloader, which is expected to retract when the whole Gleeble system is in an automated mode. So what we're going to do is to move the wedge closer to the sample. But keep in mind, the wedge must not touch the sample. It must just be close enough. So that's what I'm going to do now. And after that, I will prepare the environment for the experiment. So to do that, I do run mechanical on the console. So once I press run mechanical on the console, the pressure would build up, and once the pressure has been built up, then you can move the wedge. And I would move the wedge on the console as well, and you will see the wedge moving towards the sample. So you can see that the wedge is already moving towards the sample. Yeah, and that's about right. And now I can now stop the run mechanical so that I can prepare the environment. The next thing now is to close the compression chamber. And you also close this lid. Then I would carry out this experiment under rough vacuum. So I'm not going to carry it out under very high vacuum. So, and you can see that this gauge is already reading. And by the time it gets to about 25, then we are ready to run the experiment. Yeah, it's almost at 25 now. And as soon as we start running the experiment, our attention will be majorly on the console, because that is where you monitor what's happening during the experiment. Now that the setup on the compression chamber is finalized, we are ready to run the experiment. But before we do that, you must make sure that you click on save on this Gleeble script. You can actually run on this, but I prefer to use this because of the code that I've added. So if you don't have to put this code, it's just good that you run on this particular setup here. So, and one thing I also want you to take note is it's telling you that the change in height will be 9.5 mm. And the final height of the specimen will be like 5.5 mm, from 15 mm to 5.5. So we're making a coin from that cylindrical specimen or sample. So we're ready to start. So we click on this, you click on save, and then you go play. And now we have to monitor everything that's happened on this console. You need to pay attention to the autoloader to be sure it retracts. Fine, it retracts, then you can continue the experiment. If it doesn't retract, you have to stop the experiment. Now it retracted, and that's why you see that this is the program temperature and this is the actual temperature. You see why we need the thermocouple to be in place, and you can see that they are quite close to one another. So you monitor what's going on here. If you suddenly see 8,000, that means the thermocouple has pulled out. But as you can see, it's pretty much close. And we are 18 to 300 degrees Celsius at the rate of 5 degrees Celsius per second. We will get to 300 just now. This is a smooth experiment. So the program temperature has reached 300, so the Gleeble stopped eating, and it's trying to cool down a bit so that the temperature becomes the same. So we have this is the control temperature from the thermocouple, and that we are holding for 30 seconds now. In about 15 seconds, the deformation will take place, and this strain value would be different. We are still holding for 30 seconds now, as shown on the program. Now the deformation is taking place. You can see the strain is increasing. And we are going to a strain of 1. And that comes to the end of the experiment. And we see that the strain we achieved was 0.98. Not 1, but that was quite close enough anyway if you run it up. And now the sample is cooling down in here. So that is the end of the experiment. We can now take out the sample. I will also show you the procedure for taking out the sample.